I'm a huge fan of the Mega Man series. Is it obvious? It's just something about the solid robot blasting gameplay that I absolutely adore. I never knew there was an old PC version of Mega Man until I watched an AVGN episode on Mega Man games, and although the segment was brief, he tore it apart. Then I read other articles on how bad it is, so I just had to check it out for myself. My favorite blue bomber surely couldn't star in such a bad game. Could he? Oh, okay. First things first. What in the hell happened to Mega Man? He looks like he's poorly out of shape and went on a diet of Big Macs and Twinkies. I didn't even know robots could get pudgy. Onto the game itself. Okay, this is just wrong. You hit the fire key, which happens to be space, and the game skips the traditional stage select for an immediate opening stage. Yes, there is a stage select after this prologue level, but still, it feels unnatural for a Mega Man game, since this, to my knowledge, didn't really start being the norm until the X series on SNES. Next up, figuring out the controls. This is where things already start to really go downhill. Once again, skipping normal key bindings using Shift, Control, Alt, etc., this game opts for the arrow keys to move and space to shoot. Okay, that's expected. Escape brings up your weapon select menu. Once again, makes sense. But how do you jump? I tried the normal keys. As I said, Control, Shift, Alt, Enter, nothing. I literally had to press every key to figure it out. J. Do you realize how awkward this control scheme is? If you're watching this on your computer, go ahead and try it now. Click off this video because space would pause it, and imagine playing a platformer using the arrow keys, space, and freaking J. Go ahead, bring up Notepad and press the keys. Awkward, isn't it? I felt like I was quickly straining my hand just trying to be able to keep this hand position. To my knowledge, there was no configuration option or file where I could alter this, so you just gotta stick with it. Moving on to the initial stage itself, things don't get any better. There is only one type of enemy, a robotic guard dog. It looks easy enough at first, until it pounces. If you don't attempt to put some space in between Mega Man and the dog, you are going to be in serious jeopardy of losing a life right away, as the dog simply doesn't relent. You will want to constantly turn and fire at it until it dies, because it will leap at you again. Finally, depending on how quickly and where you defeat it, another one may approach you. The only break you get from these dogs is when you complete the stage, which really doesn't take more than a minute if you book it. Once you do survive the level, you finally get that stage select of a whopping 3 levels. I guess, way I can stay positive is that 3 robot masters means minimal experimentation to figure out who is weak to what, right? Anywho, the 3 bosses are Dynaman, Voltman, and Sonic Man. Each of them are featured in some generic stages that don't differentiate themselves from the others. Each stage includes water, horizontal and vertical zones, and enemies that are too damn small to hit properly. The only thing of note is that I did like how he started on power lines on Voltman's stage, but a hit will knock you to the ground. But other than that, all stages can be interchanged with any other bland platformer. Boxes, ladders, random suspended platforms, radioactive barrels, and water. For some reason, every stage has water. Apparently the developers thought water was the greatest thing in the world, so put it in every level. So let's get to the enemies. Remember all the fun enemies in other Mega Man games? All the robotic creatures that shoot at you, leap into the air, fly, and drop fire, massive Gutsman-like threats, stuff like that? Think any of that is in Mega Man for DOS? Oh, freaking course not. Here, the enemies are just normal creatures you typically see in a sewer. Bats, rats, mosquitoes, spiders, not much else. And as you can imagine, trying to hit these things is nearly impossible. Many enemies are way too small, and since Mega Man was never much of a croucher, you can't hit them without using your secondary weapons. Sure, the rats will peek their head up for a split second, giving you that opportunity to shoot, but when crawling towards you, some areas don't give you the luxury of jumping over them. And that's just the beginning of the awful level design. See those valves? They shoot things. Would you have gotten that when you first saw the fire being shot from them? I didn't. I was so freaking confused when I saw there were no enemies and still getting shot. Not very fair when you have no other option than simple evasion to avoid them. You can't shoot the valves to disable the projectiles, believe me, I tried. There's other bullcrap environmental hazards as well. These electrical beams will obviously do damage to you, but that cylinder in the middle will pull you towards it. Not so bad for the first beam or so, but the back half suck because you have to time it perfectly. If you don't, you'll be hit and dragged back to the middle of the area. Luckily, I didn't struggle too much with this, but it still sucks. There are also E-tanks that you can find, but unless you know that they're there, you won't get them. Even when you do know that they exist, they still make me scratch my head on figuring out how to reach them. Rush doesn't exist, so it's not like you can use him to jump higher. Thankfully, once you get used to the crap controls, you'll find the game isn't terribly difficult, and the E-tanks aren't necessary. I was able to finish the game without using a single one. The bosses have patterns that are figured out within seconds, and sub-weapons are only needed in a small handful of areas. And even then, only the Volt Shield to get through areas I couldn't jump through. I didn't even bother using the other two. One thing to note about your standard pea shooter, though, is that the pellets seem to travel at the same speed as a snail crawling around. You might eventually reach your target, but by then, you could have just jumped over or ran past them, or even take damage and just keep running. Enemies travel noticeably faster than your shots, so it just feels uneven. And considering that the limit of 3 pellets on the screen is still a thing, it sucks to watch the pellets slowly move across the screen, missing every enemy and making you essentially defenseless. Even Mega Man himself has a disbelieving look like, this is what Dr. Light built for me? So let's move on to the graphics. I'm playing this game in DOSBox using the VGA option, but if you prefer, you can play the game in the older CGA or EGA modes. I don't know. I like more modern colors. The game has a decent amount of color, but everything still just looks so plain. Where are the robots? The themed stages? Nah, we just have average platformer tropes. I've already mentioned Mega Man looks like he's gained a few pounds, but what about the Robot Masters? I mean, seriously, what about the Robot Masters? Just look at them! Look! Okay, we can stop laughing now. They look horrendous! Their in-game sprites don't fare much better. Voltman looks okay, but Dynaman looks, well, derpy. And Sonic Man looks like Bubble Man's little cousin, but at least he looks like he belongs in the game. How about Dr. Wily? They can't spell his name right, and his castle looks, well, goofy, just like the Robot Masters. But what about the final machine he has in store for Mega Man? Surely it's gotta be a good reason to stay and play the game, right? Well, take a look. It's a freaking walking monitor. Are you freaking kidding me? And once you destroy the monitor, Wily finally shows his face, and at least he looks like the other NES games. But seriously, out of all the Mega Man Wily bosses, in which he's usually fairly challenging, he's the easiest part of the game. Just jump on the far side, blast him till he gets close, leap over, and repeat. It's such a disappointing end to a disappointing game. At least you won't have to play it for long if you do decide to subject yourself to it. There are a total of 5 stages. I kid you not. The intro stage with the robot dogs, which, I should mention, seems to be the only robotic enemies in the game other than the metas and shield guys in the Wily stage. You have the 3 stages for each robot master, and then you have the count 'em, one Wily stage. And even that is just a lame boss rush, where you just play small snippets of each stage, and then fight the Robot Master again. So 5 stages. I'd say you can probably complete this game in about 15 to 20 minutes. Imagine paying full price for this game back in the day. I'd be a bit upset, because it only took me 2 attempts to get through it. And keep in mind that the first attempt was literally just me booting the game up to check it out before heading into work. So, I don't even know if I should really count that. As for sounds, I understand that there's no music because Sound Blaster probably wasn't a thing yet. So, you do get PC speaker sound effects. Sadly, most of what you're going to be hearing is Mega Man shooting in an attempt to take down his foes. And that's about it. Sure, there's a few other blips here and there, but that shooting sound will be in your head because that's 95% of what you're going to hear. So Mega Man for DOS. It should go without saying, but it's not worth your time, even for those die-hard fans like myself. And it's a shame. Mega Man on PC would have been amazing to have on PC. With games like Commander Keen, Duke Nukem, hell, even Zargon, Joe the Jungle, and stuff like that. They did well, so Mega Man ported correctly, or even a fresh game, should have been enjoyable. But instead, we get this watered-down something. When the fun of Mega Man, shooting robots down, is taken away, and you're diminished to simply attempting and mostly failing to attack small garden-variety creatures, can we really call it a Mega Man game? It almost feels sacrilegious. So instead, we are reduced to some jumping over random crap and hoping maybe, just maybe, you can actually hit something while your hand cramps up from the control scheme. And that does not make for a fun game. There was also a sequel called Mega Man 3 for some reason, so surely they had to fix what went wrong, right? Right? Oh, come on! Don't tell me that's just as bad or worse! Final score? 2 out of 7. This is Reaper. Happy fragging.